There is a place within you untouched by worry, unbothered by time, and unaffected by appearances. It is in this stillness, this sacred pause between thoughts, that the secret lies. The jackpot you have been chasing, whether it be wealth, love, peace, or purpose, has never been out there. It has always been waiting behind the curtain of your own stillness. Stillness is not laziness. It is not indifference. It is the quiet knowing that all things are already yours. When you become still, you stop reaching, and in stopping, you start receiving. The world will tell you to hustle, to grind, to chase. But listen closely. Anything you chase runs from you. Stillness, however, draws things near. Why? Because in your stillness, you're not trying to get. You are being. You are embodying the version of you who already has it. When you rest inwardly, as though the desire were fulfilled, you shift timelines. You assume the state of the one who has already won. You don't wait for the world to change, you change your inner position. The moment you accept it within, it must reflect without. You are not required to convince anyone, you are not required to prove anything, you are only required to feel deeply and quietly that it is done. Stillness is the soil in which manifestation grows. The more still you become, the more powerful your assumption becomes. You do not fight against reality. You no longer cry out for help. Instead, you whisper within yourself, I have it, I am it, it is done. And in that silence, mountains move. The jackpot is not hidden from you. It is hidden for you. In the one place most refuse to go, inward. Stop looking for signs. Stop demanding proof. Instead, go still, go silent. Close the eyes of flesh and open the eyes of faith. When you are still, you know. And when you know, you no longer wait, you rest. You rest in the unseen reality, knowing the seen must follow. So I ask you now not to try harder, but to be still. Let the noise of the world pass by you like wind. You are the calm center. You are the eye of the storm. And in that calm, the jackpot you've been waiting for quietly walks in. True desire is not achieved through effort. It is received through stillness. In stillness, you dissolve the illusion of lack. And it is an illusion, for nothing is ever truly missing from your life, except the awareness of what already exists within you. The world teaches you to hustle, to run after your dreams, to work harder, longer, faster. But let me tell you something eternal. What is truly yours will never come from strain. It will come from your alignment. And alignment is born in stillness. Stillness is not inactivity, it is inner agreement. It is the sacred space where you stop struggling against life and start flowing with it. When you become still, your attention leaves the noise of the senses and settles into the quiet truth. You already are the one you wish to become. What you seek is not on the outside. The wealth you desire, the love you crave, the peace you long for, they are not hiding in the next opportunity, the next relationship, or the next promotion. They are hiding behind the veil of your busy mind. And stillness is the key that lifts that veil. In stillness, you see clearly. You remember who you are. You return to the place where there is no urgency, no fear, and no separation from your desire. Because the truth is, your desire is not outside of you. It is already fulfilled in the unseen. But until you stop and become still, you cannot perceive it. This is why many never receive what they want. They try too hard. They force, they beg, they plead, and all of it affirms the same thing. I don't have it. But stillness says something else. It says, I do. It says, I am. It says, it is done. And so, stillness becomes your prayer, your portal. your place of power. When you are still, you are no longer acting from the state of wanting, but from the state of having. And it is this subtle shift that changes everything. No one hears the cry of desperation as clearly as the universe hears the quiet of knowing. Stillness is not just rest. It is command. It is declaration. It is creation. You were never meant to exhaust yourself chasing shadows. You were meant to stand still and let the substance of things hoped for rise through you. What if you stopped? What if you sat quietly and dared to feel that it is already yours? What if you trusted that stillness works faster than striving ever could? That is the secret. The door you're trying to force open has been waiting for your stillness, not your strength. So rest, not because you're giving up, but because you've already won. Be still, not because you're afraid to act, but because you've already become. Fulfillment does not rush, it arrives silently, like a whisper in the dark, to those who are still enough to hear it. And when it comes, you will not be surprised, for you will have already lived it in the silence of your heart. Your silent inner world is where the creative act happens. You don't force reality, you impress it with feeling, and it yields. The mind, when still, becomes a canvas upon which your imagination paints the life you truly desire. And the brush is not thought, it is feeling. It is not noise, it is awareness. It is not effort, but assumption. Imagination is not a tool of fantasy, it is the workshop of creation. Every condition, every experience, every shift in your external life is first born within, quietly and invisibly. Before the money comes, before the relationship manifests, before the opportunity arrives, something stirs in the silence of your being. A vision, a scene, a feeling, and the more silently you hold that vision, the more deeply you impress it upon the invisible substance that shapes all things. You see, noise scatters energy, but silence gathers it. The louder the world gets, the more precious your inner silence becomes. For it is in that silence that you speak the loudest to the universe. Not with words, but with conviction. Not with begging, but with knowing. This is why people who learn to be still, to go within and imagine with feeling, seem to live lives that others call lucky or miraculous. It is not luck, it is law. They are not working harder. They are working from the silence. In silence, the mind is uncluttered. The noise of doubt fades. The resistance weakens. And in its place, a clear image can take form. You no longer try to make things happen. You allow them to unfold because they already exist in your imagination. Here's the truth. The outer world responds to the inner blueprint. And that blueprint is shaped in your quiet moments, not when you are anxious, not when you are asking how it will happen, but when you rest in the feeling that it already has. Your imagination is not bound by the present moment. It is not restricted by facts or appearances. It is the place where you rewrite what the senses report. And when you enter it in silence, when you shut the door and commune with your unseen vision, you become the master of your fate. You don't force reality to change, you assume it has changed. You don't demand answers, you become the answer. You feel yourself into the new condition, and the world cannot help but yield. So take time every day to return to the silence, to close your eyes, breathe, and imagine, not as a dreamer, but as a creator. Let the scene unfold, not through logic, but through love. See it, feel it, and then release it, knowing that silence has already done the work. For the loudest shift in your life will not begin with a scream or a sign, but with a whisper in the dark, a whisper that says it is done. And in that sacred silence, everything changes. This is how imagination fulfills itself, not through force, but through faithful silence. Everything begins with a state of being. You are not waiting for life to change so you can feel different. You feel different so life can change. This is the reversal of the world's logic. While most people believe seeing is believing, the truth is believing is seeing. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you're not pretending. You're not playing make-believe. You are aligning yourself with the deeper reality that exists beyond time. You are entering into the state where your desire is already real, already alive, already yours. And the key is rest. You do not force yourself into the state, you rest in it. You surrender to it like you surrender to sleep, not with tension, but with trust. Just as you close your eyes at night and drift naturally into dreams, you enter the feeling of the fulfilled desire with ease, allowing it to wash over you until it feels like home, because that's exactly what it is, home. The state of your desire is not somewhere out there, waiting for you to earn it. It already exists within consciousness. And the moment you rest in that state, you become one with it. You are not trying to get rich. You are resting in the state of wealth. You are not seeking love. You are resting in the state of being deeply loved. You are not chasing healing. You are resting in the state of wholeness. And from that place, your world begins to shift. Not because you made it happen, but because you became it. You don't have to move a finger in the outer world until you've moved your inner world. When you rest in the fulfilled desire, the thoughts, actions, and circumstances that match that state will unfold automatically. Life rearranges itself to reflect the state you dwell in. It is not about repetition. It is about saturation. The more deeply you rest in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the more natural it becomes, until it's no longer something you're trying to feel. It's simply who you are. And when it becomes who you are, you won't need to ask, where is it? Because you will know it is done. This is why resting in the state is not laziness. It is the highest form of alignment. You are no longer trying to create from separation. You are creating from unity. You are one with your desire. And therefore, it must come forth. So find that place within yourself where the desire is already true. Enter that room and close the door behind you. Let your imagination build the scene, but let your heart feel the truth of it. Rest in it, live in it, be in it, and the world without fail will mirror it. Because life does not give you what you want, it gives you what you are. And when you become the state, the jackpot no longer needs to be chased. It arrives because you've already claimed it. We have been conditioned to believe that everything worth having must be earned through strain, that every goal must be pursued with relentless action. But what if the very chase is the reason you haven't received what you seek? What if the more you push, the more you confirm to life that you are without? You see, the outer world is only a mirror. It reflects your dominant inner state. Trying to manipulate the mirror changes nothing. You must change the image within. That image, that feeling, that assumption, it's formed in the quiet chambers of your soul, not in the chaos of motion. Effort, when it comes from a place of fear, doubt, or lack, becomes resistance. It signals to the universe, I don't have this yet, so I must fight for it. But the truth is, the more you fixate on the outer world, the more you anchor yourself in what is, rather than what can be. Let go of the outer, not in apathy, but in awareness. The outer is temporary. It is reactive. It is always one step behind your inner world. Clinging to it is like trying to rearrange smoke. It shifts, but it never solidifies. Instead, live in the inner. In the world within, you hold the pen. You are not at the mercy of conditions, you are the author of them. It is here that you can revise, select, assume, and rest. It is here that you find peace, not because life is perfect, but because you are dwelling in the end where all is already well. The unseen forces that move the stars, that birth miracles, that align people and places perfectly in your path, they do not respond to effort. They respond to alignment. And alignment is silent. It is still. It is trusting. When you live in the inner, you are no longer chasing, you are magnetizing. You are no longer reacting, you are creating. Your life becomes an unfolding, not a struggle. You no longer run from the storm. You realize you were the calm all along. This is the power of the one who withdraws attention from what seems to be and places it firmly on what will be. Not with force, but with quiet confidence. Let go of the need to explain yourself. Let go of the urge to prove your worth. Let go of the obsession with outcomes. Instead, go within. See yourself already there. Feel it real. Dwell in the scene. Let the world do what it must. You've already crossed the finish line inwardly. And that is the only place it matters. Because the moment you align with the inner reality, the outer must conform. It has no choice. It is law. So pause the struggle. Step back from the noise. Close your eyes, not in blindness, but in vision, and live inwardly as though all you desire is already here. The world teaches you to speak your desires aloud, to declare them in front of others, to prove your worthiness through words and action. But the universe does not respond to volume, it responds to vibration. It hears the silent certainty of your inner world far more clearly than any spoken affirmation that lacks belief. True power does not shout, it whispers. In silence, you broadcast the most powerful signal of all, faith. When you fall into stillness, not out of defeat, but out of confidence, you are saying to the universe, it is done. I have no need to struggle. I am aligned with the outcome. That stillness becomes your statement, your proof, your evidence of belief. Because begging is born of lack. Pleading affirms that you are separate from your desire. But silence, silence is the sound of oneness. It says, I already have what I asked for. It communicates with the highest forces of life, not through desperation, but through embodiment. Think of the seed planted in the soil. It does not scream to grow. It does not rush or panic. It simply rests, trusting that the unseen laws of nature are at work. In the same way, when you plant your assumption within the silence of your being, you need not dig it up with doubt or demand. You rest and let the law unfold it. Your inner silence is not passive. It is electric, charged with the emotion of already having. It does not sit idle. It creates. It pulls together people, events, and situations with quiet magnetic force. And the more you trust in that silence, the faster reality aligns. You do not need to explain yourself to the world. You do not need to justify your dream or convince others to agree with your vision. That is outer noise. The moment you retreat from that and move inward into the quiet chamber where only you and your assumption exist, you become the commander of reality. And what is the assumption? It is the feeling that your desire is already fulfilled. When you assume it inwardly and remain still in that knowing, the universe has no choice but to echo it outwardly. There is no force stronger than a quiet mind that knows. There is no ritual more powerful than silently embodying the result. No movement is needed, no words must be spoken. Just the still awareness that what you imagined is already yours. And so you walk differently, you speak less, you act from calm. Because within it is finished, within the decision has been made. You are no longer trying to make it happen. You are simply allowing it to unfold because your silence already gave the command. This is not arrogance. This is spiritual confidence. So the next time doubt rises, return to the silence. The next time fear whispers, turn away and rest inwardly in the state of already having. Because silence is what no word ever could. You are not attracting the jackpot. You are reflecting it. Life mirrors not what you desire, but who you are in your deeper state of being. And when your inner world is still, when it is uncluttered by fear, untouched by desperation, and free from mental noise, you become a clear mirror through which the fullness of life can shine. The jackpot isn't a number on a check. It isn't a house, a person, or a destination. It is a condition of consciousness. It is the feeling of total abundance, unshakable confidence, and inner certainty that you are already complete. And that condition, once assumed within, must be reflected without. But it begins with stillness. The mind that is always in motion, always asking, always doubting, always reacting, cannot hear the instructions of the deeper self. It cannot hold the image of fulfillment long enough to impress it on reality. It is like water that is constantly disturbed, unable to reflect anything clearly. Stillness is the discipline of the powerful. Not the stillness of doing nothing, but the stillness of believing everything has already been done. You quiet the chatter, not to escape life, but to align with the higher law that governs it. In stillness, you feel the wealth before the money comes. In stillness, you know the love before the partner appears. In stillness, you sense the victory before the world calls it yours, because the still mind is already living in the end. It is no longer grasping. It is no longer searching. It is resting in the knowing, I have received. This is why some people, seemingly without effort, experience overflow, opportunities, wealth, love, all flowing to them with ease. They have trained the mind to dwell in stillness, not in panic. They have surrendered the noise of how and have focused entirely on the I am. The jackpot, in its many forms, is not achieved by frantic action. It is received by calm certainty. It comes not to those who chase it, but to those who already carry its feelings silently within. And this is where most miss the mark. They chase results rather than tending to their state. But when you shift your inner state, the jackpot has no choice but to appear, because it is only a reflection of you. So still your mind, settle your breath, quiet your doubts, and hold, just hold the feeling of having. Don't rush it, don't question it, just become still, become open, become receptive. Because the disciplined mind that knows, that sees without eyes, that trusts without needing proof, that mind becomes the magnet for all things. The jackpot is not outside of you. It is a mirror held up to your own being. And when your being is still, when it is clear, when it is confident, in the unseen, then, like the calm surface of a lake reflecting the stars above, your outer world will mirror that inner richness perfectly, faithfully, abundantly. And so, beloved listener, the message is simple but profound. Everything you seek is already yours, if only you would be still enough to receive it. You have been taught to chase, to struggle, to prove your worth to the world. But now you know the real power lies not in movement but in inner stillness. In stillness you become. In stillness you receive. In stillness you command life without ever raising your voice. The jackpot, whether it's money, peace, love, or freedom, does not come to those who panic or plead. It comes to those who rest in the knowing that it is already done. Your silence is not empty. It is full of intention, full of creation, full of truth. So return to your inner world, close your eyes to appearances, still the noise, and there in that sacred quiet, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not tomorrow, now, because when you become the state inwardly, reality has no choice but to obey. The jackpot is not coming. It's already here. You just need to be still enough to see it. Thank you for listening, and remember, stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of power. There is a moment in every life when something hidden becomes visible, when what was once only felt is suddenly seen. And though the world will call it a surprise, it is no surprise to the one who lived it inwardly first. You are not waiting for a blessing, you are becoming it. It is already within you, rising quietly, taking shape in the stillness of your belief. Your imagination is the womb where miracles are conceived. What you accept as true, regardless of appearances, begins to form beyond the curtain of sight. You do not have to force or chase anything. That which is yours by divine imagination comes to you not with noise, but with order. A blessing is never truly unexpected. It is the result of a spiritual law obeyed in silence. You see, the shift happens the moment you surrender to the unseen truth. The moment you dare to walk, speak, and feel from the end, as though the thing you desire is already in your possession. From that posture, the world must reflect you. It cannot help it. When you assume the feeling of wealth, of healing, of love, of freedom, even when none of it yet appears in your world, you have already claimed your inheritance. The world will catch up. Do not ask how. That is not your part. Your part is to remain loyal to the unseen blessing. And when it arrives, when the door swings open, the call comes through, the opportunity falls into your lap. It will appear sudden, but you will smile, for you knew. You knew the moment you stopped begging and began embodying. You knew when you no longer reached out, but instead received inwardly. So let the world call it a surprise. Let them be amazed at how everything shifted in your favor. But you will know it was never luck, never random. It was the law of consciousness, faithfully honored in the quiet places of your heart. You were always the blessing, and now the blessing must reveal itself. Prepare to receive what your soul has already welcomed, because a surprise blessing is not coming. It is already here. What appears sudden to the world has long been growing in your imagination. A surprise blessing, they say, but to you, it is no surprise at all. For you have carried it silently, watered it with belief, and held it in the sanctuary of your mind until it ripened into form. Others may only see the surface, the instant when something materializes, the breakthrough, the good news. But beneath that single moment lies a journey that began the day you first dared to imagine something greater. You are the seed of the blessing. The moment you first felt that inner pull, that quiet knowing that something more was possible, the seed was planted. It wasn't the world that gave you the desire, it was your higher self revealing what was already yours. Your desire is not random, it is the preview of coming blessings, the whisper of a future reality seeking to unfold through you. You didn't need proof, you needed vision. Because in this reality, things do not happen to you, they unfold from you. And that unfolding begins in imagination. The invisible realm is not just fantasy. It is where all creation starts. Every structure, every invention, every love story, every fortune began as a single thought. The same is true for your life. The moment you persist in that inner knowing, you begin to impress upon the formless substance of life. The world may not change immediately. It may still look the same, still sound the same, still echo the limitations of your past, but underneath everything is moving. Everything is shifting, and it's shifting in response to the state you have assumed. You don't chase the blessing, you embody the version of yourself who already holds it. You live from the end, not toward it. That's how it grows. That's how the invisible becomes visible. And just as a seed must break before it blooms, so must your old identity fall away. You may feel doubt, you may feel resistance, you may feel alone in your vision, but even that is part of the process. The seed cannot remain intact and still become a tree. Something has to break open, something has to surrender. It may take time. But the delay is not denial, it is development. It is the root system forming beneath the surface. It is life arranging itself on your behalf. It is your belief deepening, your imagination sharpening, your inner atmosphere aligning with the new. And when it finally appears, when the phone rings, the offer arrives, the door opens, it will look like a miracle. But it is not magic. It is a manifestation, a harvest of the unseen. The blessing is not outside of you, it is an extension of you, a reflection of the state you chose to dwell in, even when nothing around you changed, even when you had every reason to give up. You didn't. You held the vision, you carried the feeling, and because you did, life had no choice but to echo your inner world. So no, it is not luck. It is not a coincidence. It is not a surprise. It is evidence. It is proof that what you dare to believe in the silence becomes what others marvel at in the light. You are not the victim of circumstance, you are the cause. And what you've created in consciousness is now breaking through the surface of your life. The world will watch and wonder how everything shifted so suddenly. But you will know. You will remember the quiet days when no one saw the seed. You will remember the nights when you watered your faith in silence. And you will know the truth. The blessing didn't come from the outside, it came from you. Because you are the seed. Your stillness is not emptiness, it's creation. In the world's eyes, silence often appears passive, as if nothing is happening. But in truth, silence is where everything begins. It is in the still, undisturbed spaces of your being that your entire reality is formed. The shift does not begin when circumstances change. It begins when your inner conversation changes, when your assumptions shift, when you stop reacting to what is and start imagining what can be. This is the hidden power of stillness. It is the place where miracles are born. In silence, you leave behind the noise of doubt, the pull of logic, the weight of what has been. You enter the inner sanctuary of your imagination, where time bends and limitations dissolve. It is here that you begin to feel not what is currently true, but what you desire to be true. And by daring to feel it real in this space, you set a law into motion. You are not hoping or wishing, you are accepting and embodying. That's creation. The world may call it doing nothing, but you know better. You know that stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the alignment of being. When your mind, your emotion, and your inner speech are united toward one assumption, you are more powerful than 1,000 actions. Because everything you do outwardly is simply a reflection of who you are inwardly. When you shift in silence, life begins to echo that new state. It doesn't matter if nothing outside has changed yet. The soil does not complain while the seed is sprouting beneath it. It trusts the process. So must you. When you rest inwardly in the state of already having what you desire, you change the energy you radiate. You stop grasping, You stop searching. You begin to embody. This silent alignment is the signal to the universe. It is not begging, it is claiming. And the universe listens to your vibration more than your words. It moves in response to your state, not your struggle. When you are still, you are no longer arguing with reality. You are no longer feeding the old story. You are simply dwelling in the new, in the unseen, in the felt experience of a better reality. This stillness is not idle. It is active faith. It is spiritual authority. You are no longer a victim of your circumstances. You are the creator of them. That is why the most profound transformations often begin in solitude. In the quiet of a morning, in the breath before sleep, in the moment where you detach from everything external and turn inward. You close your eyes and you see the life you choose to live. You feel it in your body. You walk through it in your mind. You speak from it as if it were already true. And in doing so, you bridge the gap between what is and what can be. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes the shift is subtle. A new calm, a strange peace, a soft confidence. These are signs that the old has been released and the new has taken root. You no longer seek proof, you carry it. You no longer wait for confirmation, you live as if it's already done. And because you do, the world must conform. So do not underestimate your silence. Do not dismiss your stillness. It is not emptiness, it is power. It is the sacred space where the invisible becomes visible. What you feel in that space will not stay hidden. It will shape your tomorrow. It will find a way to you in form, in time, in ways you could never predict. Let the world move in noise and effort. Let others chase and plead. You, however, will retreat into the silence. You will feel the truth of your desire is already fulfilled. And because you do, it will come. Because the shift, the real shift, always begins in silence. Do not look for signs, be the sign. The moment you stop seeking confirmation in the outer world and begin embodying the truth within, everything changes. You are not meant to wait for life to show you proof. You are meant to become the evidence of what you believe. The world mirrors what you are, not what you wish for. When you walk with certainty, when you move from conviction instead of hesitation, reality bends to reflect that state. So many people spend their lives scanning the outside for signs, a number, a message, a synchronicity to validate their desire. But the moment you look outside for confirmation, you give away your creative power. You hand over your authority to chance when it was always meant to live within you. The true sign is not something you find, it's something you become. You are the carrier of the message, the embodiment of the answered prayer, the living signal that your desire is already fulfilled. The universe does not respond to begging, it responds to assumption. When you assume a state internally, when you live, breathe, and feel from the end, you shift your energy. And this shift, although invisible to others at first, becomes magnetic. It begins to attract experiences, people, and moments that echo the frequency you now hold. You are no longer asking if it will come. You're moving as though it's already here. This is not delusion, it's alignment. And it is the secret behind every so-called miracle. Before anything shows up in form, it must exist in feeling. Feel the shift before you see it, and the blessing must appear, not because you forced it, but because life cannot contradict what you have already accepted as true. You must dare to be it. Not wish for it, not talk about it endlessly, not analyze how it will come. Simply be the one who already has it. Think like them, walk like them, speak from that version of you. This is the act of creation. It's not about controlling the outside. It's about transforming the inside, and when the inner changes, the outer must follow. You've looked for signs long enough. You've waited for reassurance, for a message from the sky, for a lucky break. But what if you are the message? What if the very presence of your unwavering belief is the most powerful sign of all? Do you want to see a sign? Look in the mirror and ask yourself who you are being. That is the only sign you ever need. If you are embodying doubt, fear, and hesitation, the world will echo that. If you are embodying trust, gratitude, and certainty, life will match that too. You are always sending a signal, even in silence, even when you say nothing, especially then. The ones who shift the world are not waiting to be told it's time. They declare that it is. They move first, they believe first, and because they do, the world rearranges. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. So become it now. Be the love, be the abundance, be the healing, be the success. Not tomorrow, not when things look different. Now, and as you continue in that state, the blessing becomes inevitable. What once seemed like magic becomes normal. What others call a sign becomes your natural reflection. You no longer search for alignment, you are alignment. So don't look for signs. Become the embodiment of your desire. Stand as proof that inner conviction is more powerful than external validation. Walk through life with the calm knowing that you are the cause, not the effect. When you stop waiting to see the shift and start being the shift, everything begins to move. Life responds. Doors open. Paths clear. And you won't need a sign anymore, because you will be one. Faith is a knowing, not a hoping. Hope looks to the future with uncertainty. It waits, it wishes, it pleads. But faith lives in the present moment, as if the future were already fulfilled. It does not reach forward, it stands now. Faith is the quiet confidence that what you have accepted in your imagination is already yours, even before your senses confirm it. You do not need evidence when you know. That is the difference. Hope watches the door. Faith walks through it. You do not wish for the blessing, you embody it. You walk as the one who has already received. You speak with the tone of fulfillment, not lack. You no longer look around wondering when. It is already done in you. This is not pretending. It is not play acting. It is the highest spiritual act of creation. You become the version of yourself who lives in the reality where the blessing has already arrived. This requires a shift in identity. You must stop seeing yourself as the one waiting to receive and begin seeing yourself as the one who has already received. You begin to carry yourself differently. You think from the end. You act in alignment with what you know, not what you fear. You stop negotiating with doubt because you have already claimed the promise. Your job now is not to make it happen. Your job is to remain loyal to the unseen. When you truly expect something, you prepare for it. You make room. If you were expecting guests to arrive, you would clean the house, set the table, open the door. You would act as if their arrival was certain. Why? Because expectation creates movement. In the same way, when you have faith in a blessing, you make space in your mind, in your habits, and in your emotions for it to enter. This is not blind optimism. This is spiritual intelligence. Faith is not measured by the volume of your prayers, but by the stability of your inner state. Can you stay steady in the silence? Can you remain faithful when there is no sign, no movement, no proof? That is the test. Not how loudly you affirm, but how deeply you rest. When the world gives you reasons to doubt, do you still choose to know? There is no such thing as unfulfilled faith. When you operate from true knowing, you activate a law that must be fulfilled. It may not come in the way you imagined or in the timing you hoped for, but it will come. It must. Because reality conforms to the consciousness that sustains it. And when your consciousness is rooted in certainty, the outer world bends to reflect that truth. Faith is not anxious. It is not desperate. It does not knock repeatedly on doors that remain shut. Faith knows that the right door opens at the right time. Faith doesn't collapse under delay. It deepens. It understands that the blessing was never withheld, it was being formed. It was growing roots. And when it arrives, you will see clearly that it had been making its way to you the entire time. So stop hoping, start knowing. Step into the life you desire as if it were already here. Speak from it. Think from it. Feel from it. Let every part of you align with the outcome you've already claimed. That alignment is the blessing in motion. You no longer wait for the miracle. You are the vessel of it. And because you know this, nothing can shake you. Not delay, not silence, not challenge. You stand firm in the invisible truth until it becomes visible. That is faith. And that is how the blessing finds you, not as a surprise, but as a certainty. Your current reality is a shadow. It is not the full picture. It is not the truth. It is the echo of the beliefs you've held, the assumptions you've lived in, the identity you've unconsciously worn. What you see around you is simply a reflection of your past state of being. It is not fixed. It is not final. It is a mirror showing you what you previously accepted as real. And just like a shadow, it is delayed. It trails behind you, never ahead. But here's the beauty of this truth. Once you realize that reality is not solid, not absolute, not sovereign, you are free. Free to shift, free to detach, free to release the grip on what is and to align instead with what could be, what should be, what already is in the unseen. That is where true creation happens, not in reacting to what is visible, but in resting in what is invisible but real. The moment you detach from appearances, something powerful happens. You stop feeding the illusion. You stop reinforcing the cycle. You no longer say, this is just the way it is, or nothing's changing. Instead, you quietly affirm, this is only the shadow of my past thinking. I now create a new. You understand that the moment you shift within, the outer must follow. Not instantly, but inevitably. You move into alignment not by force, but by recognition. You recognize that what you truly are, your desires, your visions, your longings, are not random fantasies, but deeper truths seeking expression. And they cannot express themselves while you are glued to the surface of things, distracted by what has been. The outer world will always reflect the dominant truth you carry inside. When you carry limitation, you experience lack. When you carry peace, you experience order. When you carry fulfillment, you experience abundance. Your job is not to fix the shadow. It's to change the light source. Shift the consciousness that is casting it. This means anchoring yourself in the unseen truth of your desire fulfilled, not begging for it, not waiting for permission, but accepting it as done within. This inner acceptance is everything. It sends out a new signal, a new frequency, and the world must realign to it. It has no choice. Let go of reacting to current conditions. The more you react, the more you lock yourself into them. Reality is fluid. It is always catching up to your state. When you begin to live, feel, and speak from the version of you who already has the blessing, that version begins to emerge. Not just within, but all around you. You do not need to fix what you see. You need to change what you believe. Because belief precedes manifestation. Inner knowing gives birth to outer confirmation. You are not at the mercy of the physical world. You are the cause, and the physical is the effect. When you stop wrestling with the shadow and instead stand in the light of truth, the shadow rearranges on its own. So walk gently through your current circumstances, not as someone trapped, but as someone passing through. You are shifting now. You are aligning now. You are choosing to see not with the eyes, but with the heart. And that choice That inner pivot is the birthplace of miracles. Detach, anchor, align. The blessing was never outside of you. It was always waiting for you to remember who you are. The moment you do, the shadow must change. Because it was never your reality. It was only the echo. The unexpected is inevitable when you assume correctly. The world calls it luck, coincidence, or fate. But those who understand the deeper law of consciousness know better. They know that nothing enters your life uninvited. Everything that appears, every so-called surprise, every breakthrough, every shift, is the result of a state you once assumed to be true. It is not about effort, it is not about struggle, it is about identity. Life responds not to your words, but to who you are being. To assume correctly means to embody the version of yourself that already has the desire fulfilled. You no longer act as the one who wants, you become the one who has. This assumption is not just a thought, it is a state. It is a felt experience, a decision to move, speak, feel, and think from the place of completion. You walk as though it's already yours. You carry yourself as though nothing is missing. And because you do, the universe begins to conform. This is where the so-called unexpected begins to show up. Not because you forced it, but because your assumption set an unseen chain of events into motion. Opportunities arise, people change, circumstances shift, paths open, but it never happens the way you expect. That is the mystery and beauty of it. The surprise is not that it happens, but how. It's the timing, it's the precision, it's the grace with which it all unfolds. When you assume correctly, you're no longer trying to figure out the details. You stop chasing outcomes. You stop waiting for permission. You know it's already done in the unseen, and your job is simply to remain faithful to that truth. There is no more striving, no more waiting for signs. You become the sign, you live the proof. You radiate the feeling of already having it, and that feeling changes everything. And that feeling changes everything. The assumption is a creative act. It declares, this is who I am now, and refuses to negotiate with appearances that contradict it. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is not fantasy, it is foundation. And it is from this foundation that reality is built. Life must mirror back the dominant state you dwell in. If you live in lack, you see more of it. If you live in fulfillment, fulfillment finds you. This is not personal, it is law. So do not worry about how it will happen. Do not demand the path to be clear. The path is none of your business. Your role is the state. The state determines the outcome. And when you dwell in the state of the answered prayer, of the completed desire, the world bends itself to meet you there. People will look at you and wonder how it all came together. They'll call it sudden. They'll say it happened overnight. But you'll know there was nothing sudden about it. You became it long before it appeared. You assumed correctly. You aligned, you prepared. And because you did, life rearranged. You don't need to know the way. You just need to trust the law. The moment you assume the role of the blessed, the healed, the wealthy, the loved, the world begins to play its part. Everything starts to respond to the vibration you now hold. The outer begins to echo the inner, and the miracle must follow. So do not be surprised when it shows up. Smile, knowing it was already done. Marvel, not at that it came, but how beautiful it was orchestrated. You will realize that the unexpected was inevitable all along. You assumed correctly, and now the world must agree. You were never waiting on life, life was waiting on you. The moment you dared to believe, to assume, to embody what you could not yet see, the shift began. Every blessing, every breakthrough, every surprise was not a stroke of luck. It was the natural outcome of who you chose to be in silence. You are not separate from your desires. You are the seed, the soil, and the sun. And now, as you rest in that knowing, Life must reveal what was always yours. So stop watching the clock. Stop begging for signs. Walk in the state of the answered prayer. Let the world catch up to the truth you already carry. The surprise is not that it's coming. The miracle is it's already here. Thank you for listening. You have imagined. You have felt the end. You have seen yourself with it, being it, living from it. But the path from where you stand to where you belong is not drawn by your logic. The infinite mind never repeats itself. It moves through the least expected doors, walks silently down the corridors you forgot to check. Your transformation rarely announces itself. It arrives wrapped in confusion, delay, heartbreak, or even coincidence. You might say, this wasn't part of the plan. But what you call disruption is simply the answer wearing another name. You wanted peace, then chaos came. You asked for strength, then loneliness arrived. You sought love, and rejection opened your heart. The things that shook you were the very things that freed you. You didn't expect the lesson to come this way, but now you see it was the only way. Stop trying to trace the plan. Your job is not to predict the miracle, but to trust that it's already unfolding. Even the delays, the detours, the disappointments, they are threads in the greater design. Your assumption shapes the outcome, but the means are divine and untamed. You must walk with faith, not foresight. The vision belongs to you, but the method belongs to the higher wisdom that knows the perfect way. Many look for signs in the familiar, but real change, life-altering change, never feels comfortable. It shakes you before it builds you. It removes before it rewards. It burns before it blesses. You must dare to say, I don't understand what's happening, but I trust it's exactly what I need. I didn't expect this, but this is the shift I asked for. Because it is. Because the unexpected is not random. Because what you didn't see coming is the only thing that could have pushed you to become what you were always meant to be. So let go of how you thought your blessing would arrive. Surrender your timeline. Release your obsession with controlling the form. And remember, the thing you never expected will be the thing that transforms you, not by force, but by perfect design. Let it come, let it change everything. What you often call coincidence, accident, or even misfortune is not what it seems. You live in a world that reflects your inner state, but the reflection rarely appears in the form you anticipate. That is the divine play. To disguise order as chaos, to dress answers in the garments of confusion, and to send your miracle through a door you never thought to open. The divine pattern always hides in the unexpected. You may believe you know how your blessing should arrive. You may assume it will come gently, logically, and with clarity. But the great pattern of life moves not through what is obvious, but through what awakens you. It hides itself in what shakes you, stirs you, unsettles your plans, and challenges your sense of control. Why? Because only through the unexpected are you pulled out of repetition and pushed into revelation. Only through the mystery do you learn to trust in something greater than your senses. Often, when life rearranges itself in a way you did not ask for, your first response is resistance. You say, this shouldn't be happening, or I didn't plan for this, or why now? But look again. Every turning point in your life came through something you didn't foresee. The jobs you lost, the people who left, the doors that closed. At the time, you saw them as setbacks. But they were sacred movements. They were not endings. They were realignments. The divine doesn't ask for your approval before delivering the necessary change. It acts in perfect intelligence regardless of whether you understand it. You must remember, The answers you seek do not always arrive looking like solutions. Sometimes they arrive disguised as breakdowns. But these breakdowns are not destruction, they are construction in progress. You cannot enter a new reality while still clinging to the old. And so, what is no longer aligned must fall. What no longer serves must be removed. The higher pattern dismantles the lower one, not to hurt you, but to make room for the life you truly desire. To the logical mind, it will seem as if things are going wrong, but nothing is ever going wrong. Things are only unfolding in ways you do not yet comprehend. There is order beyond your perception. There is beauty behind the confusion. There is intelligence at work, carefully weaving together moments, people, decisions, delays, all aligning in divine precision to bring you to what is yours. You may think you were denied, but you were being delayed for something better. You may feel you were forgotten, but you were being protected. You may have believed you failed, but in truth you were being redirected. What looked like an ending was the beginning of something greater. But that greater thing had to come in a way you never expected, or you would have tried to control it, force it, or resist it. So the divine must come wrapped in mystery. It must surprise you. It must appear uninvited. Only then can it bypass your doubt, your fear, your limitation, and plant within you a deeper faith. One that says, I don't know how this will work out, but I trust that it will. One that no longer fears the unknown, but welcomes it. One that sees every twist, every pause, every change, not as punishment, but as perfect orchestration. And the moment you stop judging what arrives, the pattern reveals itself. You begin to see how every detour had meaning, how every heartbreak held a lesson, how every delay was a gift. You understand now, the unexpected was never random. It was necessary. It was always the bridge, never the barrier. It was the divine in disguise, reshaping your world so it could deliver the very thing your soul called forth. What you didn't expect is what changes everything. Imagination is the sacred starting point of every creation. It is where the invisible becomes felt and the formless begins to take shape. When you assume something to be true, not wish for it, not beg for it, but fully accept it as your inner reality, you set a destination. You impress upon the unseen the image of your desire. You give the infinite a blueprint. But what you must understand is this: while you choose the destination, the higher order chooses the path. Imagination prepares the way, but reality always decides the route. You may see yourself wealthy, loved, free, successful, and that inner vision is real. It is not a fantasy. It is a seed. But how that seed will sprout, how it will grow, and the exact form it takes in your outer world, that is not yours to manage. The moment you assume the wish fulfilled, the process begins. But it will not unfold according to your logic. It will unfold according to a higher intelligence that knows what must change, who must exit, and what must be removed from your life in order to make space for what you've declared. This is why so often the path shocks you. It doesn't feel smooth or predictable. Sometimes it feels like everything is falling apart. But this is only because you're watching the old structure collapse while the new one is still forming. Do not panic when it looks like nothing is happening, or worse, that things are moving backward. Reality is not punishing you. It is reorganizing itself. It must remove the old energies, the outdated beliefs, the people and circumstances that are no longer compatible with the new identity you've chosen within. You may think this isn't the way it was supposed to happen, but how could you know the way? The mind is limited in scope, but the infinite sees the full design. Your role is not to figure out how it comes to pass. Your role is to feel the end, to remain loyal to the vision, and to allow life to move through whatever doors it needs to walk through, even if those doors are unexpected, even if they scare you. Let go of the need to manipulate the process. The more you try to force the how, the more you delay the arrival. Why? Because interference comes from doubt. Doubt weakens the vibration of the assumption. But when you trust the outcome, when you say, I don't care how, I just know it's done, then the route opens effortlessly. Life begins to mirror that certainty, not by obeying your plan, but by obeying your inner state. You must become comfortable with uncertainty. You must learn to walk through detours with faith, not fear. Because sometimes the route life chooses will take you through a challenge, not to test you, but to prepare you. Sometimes it will remove what you thought you needed, so you can discover what you actually need. Sometimes it will close the door you prayed would open, not because it was wrong to ask, but because it wasn't the door that leads to where you're truly meant to be. The path is divine, even when it's unclear. Trust that. Trust that your assumption, held faithfully, is enough to shift the world around you. Trust that every step, even the confusing ones, is part of a perfect unfolding. You are not being led astray. You are being carried forward, even if it doesn't look the way you expected. Let your imagination do its sacred work. Let it prepare the way by claiming the feeling of already having what you desire. But then, step back. Let life handle the details. Let the higher intelligence guide the route. It knows every shortcut, every hidden opportunity, every alignment waiting for you. Your job is not to plan the route. Your job is to trust the arrival. When everything feels like it's falling apart, it's easy to label the moment as failure, misfortune, or punishment. But this is a misunderstanding of how true transformation takes place. What you call a breakdown is not the end. It's the preparation. It is the unseen doorway, the hidden passage through which the new must enter. The old world, built on outdated beliefs, attachments, and patterns, must collapse before the new can take root. There is no other way. You cannot hold on to the familiar and still receive the unfamiliar. You cannot stay the same and yet become something greater. And so, life in its perfect design orchestrates moments that shake the foundation of everything you thought was secure. Jobs end, relationships dissolve, routines shatter, and identities break down. Not because something has gone wrong, but because something higher is trying to break through. The breakdown feels like chaos. It feels like confusion and grief. But underneath the surface, there is a deeper order at work. The crumbling you feel is the tearing down of walls that no longer serve you. You may not recognize it at first because it hurts. It feels like loss, but you are not losing. You are being released. You are being freed from the limitations you unknowingly accepted as truth. And here lies the paradox. The most profound breakthroughs come disguised as endings. You prayed for growth, for peace, for purpose, but you did not realize that those things require space. They require the removal of everything that contradicts them. You asked to rise, but the rise demands a letting go of the weight you didn't know you were carrying. So the divine steps in and gently, or sometimes suddenly, begins removing what blocks your expansion. It may feel cruel, but it is mercy. It may look like destruction, but it is recreation. Every storm has its purpose. Every collapse is clearing the ground for something truer, something stronger, something more aligned with who you are becoming. In these moments, you must not panic. You must not retreat into the old just because it is familiar. This is where faith is forged. Not when things are easy, but when everything feels uncertain. When the ground beneath you shifts, you must anchor in the unseen. You must trust that what is being removed is making room for what is better, even if you can't see it yet. Especially then. Think back to your life. How many times did your greatest changes come after what you thought was your lowest point? How many times did you rise not in spite of the breakdown, but because of it? The breakdown removes your illusions. It silences your distractions. It strips away the false sense of control. And in that stillness, that emptiness, the truth begins to whisper. New desires emerge, new clarity is born, and from that a new world begins to shape itself. Do not resist the collapse. Allow it. Let it do its sacred work. Let it dismantle the life that no longer reflects the real you. Grieve if you must, but don't cling. The pain is temporary, but the renewal is eternal. Soon you will walk through the ashes and realize you are not broken. You are rebuilt, stronger, wiser, lighter. The doorway that looked like an end was in truth a beginning in disguise. What you thought was falling apart was really falling into place. When life throws something unexpected into your path, the immediate impulse is often resistance. The mind scrambles to control, to fix, to make sense of what appears to be chaos. But this reaction, though natural, cuts you off from a deeper truth. Not everything unplanned is wrong. In fact, many of the things you didn't anticipate are perfectly orchestrated moments, not to destroy your path, but to redirect it towards something higher. To experience their gift, you must learn to be still in the face of the unpredictable. Stillness is not passive. It is not indifference or retreat. It is power under control. It is the quiet confidence that comes from trusting something greater than what your senses can see. It is choosing to observe rather than react, to stay centered rather than scattered. When you become still in the middle of uncertainty, you allow the deeper pattern of life to reveal itself. Something unplanned does not mean something unwanted. But because it doesn't fit the structure of your expectations, you might miss its blessing. You might rush to label it as a mistake, but all too often what shows up uninvited is actually the answer to what your soul has asked for. Not in the form you expected, but in the form you needed. You asked for growth, and life sent discomfort. You asked for clarity, and life brought confusion. You asked for alignment, and life removed the people and places that no longer fit. At first glance, these things seem like problems, but stillness gives you the space to see through the illusion. Stillness says, wait, look again. There is something sacred happening here. You are never being punished by unpredictability. You are being expanded by it. And expansion always comes with the unknown. If you want a life greater than the one you've known, you must also allow the unknown to lead you. You must give up the illusion of control and let the deeper current take you where you're truly meant to go. Being still does not mean doing nothing. It means doing the inner work while the outer world shifts. It means asking, what is this teaching me? What in me is being called to change? Is this the disruption that will lead to a breakthrough I didn't even know I needed? These are the questions that open your eyes to the seed buried within the moment. There is always a seed, a hidden opportunity, a concealed answer, but you can only recognize it when you step out of the noise of panic and step into the silence of awareness. The unpredictable will continue to show up, not to harm you, but to wake you up, to free you from the narrow plans of the mind and usher you into the vastness of the spirit. Let go of the idea that everything must go according to plan. What you call a detour is often the most direct path to your answered prayer. What you call interruption is sometimes intervention. And what you call loss is often the very thing that makes room for something far more aligned. So the next time something unexpected occurs, pause. Don't resist. Don't fight it. Observe it with stillness. Stay rooted in the feeling of trust. Remind yourself, even this has purpose. Even this holds a gift. The gift may not be obvious now, but one day you will look back and see it clearly. The moment that looked like a disruption was the moment everything began to align. Unpredictability is not the enemy of your manifestation, it is the carrier of it. Be still. Let it deliver what your heart has already called in. You spoke the words. You imagined the outcome. You felt the desire and held the vision. You asked with your heart, with your faith, and with your longing. But when the answer came, it looked nothing like you expected. And so you hesitated, you doubted, you questioned whether it was even your manifestation at all. What you didn't yet understand is that every true manifestation is delivered in disguise. Life never moves in a straight line. The journey from your desire to its fulfillment is not built from what is logical, it's built from what is necessary. And the necessary is often unfamiliar. The form that delivers what you want is rarely the form you anticipated. The very thing you've asked for may come dressed as loss. It may arrive through an ending, a delay, a detour, even a moment of silence. But this is not because life is cruel or indifferent. It is because transformation cannot fit inside your limited expectations. What is real must be received without condition. You must be willing to see beyond appearances. Because the moment you declare a desire, reality begins to shape itself around that declaration. It does not ask you for approval. It does not consult your list of preferences. It simply begins aligning, removing, rearranging, carving a path from where you are to where you belong. And in that alignment, things are shaken loose. What you thought was permanent may fall away. What you relied on may dissolve. But this is not the absence of your manifestation. It is the arrival of it in a form you never considered. The unfamiliar is not the enemy. It is the envelope that holds the answer. But you must open it without fear. You must be able to say, this is not what I expected, but maybe this is what I need. Because what you need will often surprise you. It will pull you into growth. It will challenge your assumptions. It will teach you to receive with open hands, not closed fists. Think about the most powerful changes in your life. Did any of them arrive in a way you predicted? Or did they come through people you never imagined, in moments you didn't plan, through circumstances you wouldn't have chosen? That is how the universe works, not by giving you what your mind can control, but by giving you what your soul has called forth, even if it looks unfamiliar. When you ask for something, don't demand that it show up in one specific way. Don't box it in with rigid expectations. Allow space, allow surprise, allow mystery. Because the deeper truth is this: the thing you ask for is already here, but you may not recognize it yet. It may be wrapped in challenge. It may be hidden beneath discomfort. But it's here, unfolding, moving, shifting behind the scenes. This is why surrender is powerful. Not as weakness, but as wisdom. You surrender the how. You surrender the timing. And most importantly, you surrender the form. You trust that your assumption is heard, honored, and already being fulfilled, even if the delivery doesn't match your prediction. What you must learn is this: manifestation is not about controlling reality. It's about accepting the blessing in whatever form it chooses to come. Be ready to say yes to what you don't recognize at first. Be ready to walk through unfamiliar doors. Because the more you expand your openness, the more miracles can move freely into your life. You asked, and it is coming. But you didn't expect it like this. That's okay. Open your eyes. Open your heart. The blessing is here, just not in the way you imagined. It's better. It's wiser. And it knows exactly how to reach you. You spend so much of your energy trying to plan, predict, and control every detail of your life. You draw timelines. You create lists. You imagine how things should unfold step by step. You believe that by holding on tightly, you are increasing your chances of success. But the truth is far more gentle, far more profound. Your life will not change when your plan is perfect. It will change when you surrender. Surrender is not the absence of intention. It is the release of resistance. It's not about giving up on your desires. It's about giving up your grip on how they must appear. You have the right to desire, to imagine, to assume the outcome, but you do not need to control the delivery. In fact, the very act of trying to force it is what delays it. The moment you stop demanding a specific method, the moment you stop micromanaging the universe, you create the space for your desire to flow into your life naturally. Control is rooted in fear, the fear that if you don't push, it won't happen, that if you don't direct every step, life will miss you. But the truth is, life already knows the path. Your desire is already heard. The moment you imagined it and felt it to be true, a new course began unfolding in the unseen. The only thing that blocks it is your attachment to how it must come. Imagine placing an order at a restaurant and then barging into the kitchen every few seconds to check if the chef is doing it right. That's what your mind does when it refuses to let go. It doubts, it interferes, it delays. But when you place your order and trust the process, the outcome arrives with ease. Surrender works the same way. It is the invisible hand that clears the way for miracles. Life is not a machine to be controlled, it is a river to be flowed with. When you surrender, you enter that flow. You stop paddling upstream and you allow the current to carry you exactly where you need to be. You find that opportunities show up without strain. The right people appear, the right moments open, not because you forced them, but because you aligned with them. There is a higher intelligence that governs this world. It sees what you cannot. It knows what must shift, who must exit, and what must unfold before your desire becomes reality. You may not understand the timing or the detours, but surrender says, I trust that this too is part of it. It doesn't fight what comes, it accepts, it allows. And in doing so, it invites rapid transformation. Many people wait for their lives to change before they surrender. But it's the other way around. The change begins the moment you let go. When you stop insisting that it has to be a certain way, life responds with grace. It brings you exactly what you need, often faster and in better form than you imagined. This is the hidden key. Your desire doesn't manifest when you force it. It manifests when you trust it. When you relax into the feeling that it's already yours, and you release your need to control, that is when the shift occurs. That is when the door opens. That is when the unseen becomes seen. You don't have to know the how. You only have to know the truth of what you want and feel it real within you. Let the details be handled by the wisdom that moves the stars and shapes the seasons. That wisdom lives in you, and it will not fail you. So breathe, let go. You've planned enough, you've tried enough. Now let the mystery take over. Your life will change, not when you push harder, but when you finally surrender. What you didn't expect will be what changes everything. Not because life enjoys surprise, but because transformation rarely wears a label. The answers to your deepest desires often arrive disguised as disruption, delay, or detour. But underneath the surface, something sacred is unfolding. The divine pattern hides in the unfamiliar, and your greatest breakthrough may be concealed in what once felt like a breakdown. You imagine the end, you assume the outcome, and that was enough to begin the process. But the path is not yours to control. The route, the method, the timing, these belong to something far wiser than your understanding. So when the unexpected happens, don't resist. Be still. Observe. Receive. Let the unplanned guide you. Let the unfamiliar bless you. Surrender your grip on the how and trust the truth you've already declared, because the moment you let go is the moment everything begins to align. The blessing comes not in the way you expected, but in the way that was always meant for you. Saying, thanks. Thank you for allowing this message to meet you today. May it remind you that what seems uncertain is often the beginning of something extraordinary. Trust the unseen, surrender to the unfolding, and know what's meant for you is already on its way. There are moments when life gifts you something you didn't even know you needed, something you never consciously asked for, and yet it arrives. You may say, I never prayed for this, I never visualized this, but understand this, your soul did. You see, blessings are not only born from loud affirmations or dramatic intentions. Some are the result of quiet alignment, unseen choices, gentle shifts in awareness. You held a posture of grace, a frequency of faith, even when you weren't aware of it. And so a door is opening, not because you knocked, but because the house was already yours. There are blessings stored in invisible realms, waiting for your readiness, not your request. You may feel you've been overlooked. You may believe you've done nothing special, but life is not keeping score by effort. It responds to states of being. If you've ever chosen peace when chaos was easier, if you've ever held compassion when you had every right to turn cold, if you've ever stood still in faith when your senses screamed otherwise, then you've already spoken the only language the universe understands: identity. This is not about striving, it's about becoming. The blessing that's coming didn't require a performance, it required a presence. And now that presence is full, complete, mature enough to receive what your old self couldn't carry. Don't look around for evidence, look within. Don't search for signs, be the sign. A shift has occurred inside you, quiet, sacred, and powerful. And as within, so without. The external must now echo the internal. Prepare your heart, not because you begged, but because life is generous by nature. It gives where there is space. You didn't ask for this blessing in words, but you lived it in spirit, and now it's coming. Let it in, let it unfold, and most of all, let it be easy. Before you ever spoke a word of desire, before you ever imagined yourself worthy of more, the blessing was already written into your script. Life, in its infinite wisdom, does not wait for you to plead before it prepares the answer. It moves ahead of you, guided not by your effort, but by your inner state, your awareness, your silent assumptions. There is a greater intelligence within you that crafts your path, not from logic, but from what you believe yourself to be. And it is from this identity that your life unfolds. What appears as a coincidence or stroke of luck is nothing more than the echo of consciousness in motion, an outer picture reflecting an inner reality. The blessing is not coming because you performed the right rituals or said the right words. It's coming because at some point in time, consciously or unconsciously, you aligned with it. You lived in a state that harmonized with the vibration of that gift, and in doing so, you became a match for it. Long before you saw any evidence, there are blessings that belong to you by right of awareness, not effort. You might not remember asking for them, but your state of being asked. Your quiet moments of surrender, your deep inner knowing, your choice to trust when it would have been easier to doubt. All of that spoke louder than any spoken prayer. You must understand that the world you see is not created by external action, it is projected by what you are within. The script of your life is not written by fate, nor is it dictated by chance. It is altered by what you accept as true. And once that truth is accepted, even without conscious intention, the world begins to rearrange itself to match it. So when a blessing arrives unexpectedly, it is never truly random. It is the return of something you already claimed in consciousness. It is the harvest of a seed sown in silence. You may have forgotten the moment you shifted inwardly, but life never did. It remembered, it recorded it, and now it fulfills it. There is a perfect timing for every blessing, and that timing has nothing to do with how long you've been waiting. It has everything to do with how deeply you've become the version of you who can receive it. Some gifts are not withheld. They are simply held back until you can hold them with grace. You do not need to force anything into your life. That which is yours by consciousness cannot be taken, delayed, or denied. It must come. It has to, for this is the law. As within, so without. When the inner script changes, the outer scene must follow. Even now, things are being moved in your favor that you know nothing about. People are being shifted. Opportunities are being prepared. What seemed impossible is quietly becoming inevitable. And all of it is happening because at some level you stopped chasing and started embodying. You didn't have to ask in desperation. You only had to become still enough to know that the answer had already been sent. Life is not reacting to you, it is reflecting you. It is not giving to you because you begged. It is showing you who you've already become. So trust this moment. You are not late, and your blessing is not lost. You are simply arriving at the part of your script where what was written in spirit begins to unfold in form. And when it does, it will feel both miraculous and natural, because deep down you'll know this was always meant for you. You may not remember asking, but your soul did. Long before your conscious mind could shape the words, long before your tongue could form the request, your inner being already whispered your needs to the infinite. And that whisper, pure, silent, and sincere, was heard. The truth is, not all desires are born in the conscious mind. Some are carried in the spirit, etched into the quiet spaces of your being. You might wake up one day feeling drawn to something new, something better, without understanding where that longing came from. But rest assured, it was not random. It was a message returning to you, echoing from a time your soul once reached out and said, "This is what I need." You may believe that because you never said it aloud, it was never known. But the infinite doesn't respond to words alone. It responds to frequency, to feeling, to the energy you emit when you're alone with your truth. In moments of stillness, when your ego is quiet and your heart is soft, your soul makes its petitions known. You may not hear them, but they are heard. And now, the response is on its way. Life is not waiting for you to craft a perfect prayer. It is not withholding blessings until you find the right formula. It is responding to the essence of who you are and what you've been becoming. Your soul speaks fluently the language of alignment. It knows what to ask for even when your mind is uncertain. It knows what you truly need, even when you do not. Have you ever been surprised by a blessing? Something beautiful, perfectly timed, yet entirely unplanned? That is not luck. That is soul language returning to you. That is the answer to a request you don't consciously recall making. You didn't ask with your lips. You asked with your heart. You asked by the way you kept going. You asked by the way you refused to settle. You asked by the way you dreamed quietly while the world told you to give up. There is no expiration date on soul whispers. They live outside of time. What was asked in a moment of silent surrender may bloom years later in a field of grace, but it will bloom. Because soul requests are sacred. They are the true prayers that creation responds to, not shouted demands, but sacred alignment. When you feel a shift coming into your life, when something good is approaching, and you didn't consciously call it forth, remember this truth. Your soul remembered what you forgot. It knew what you couldn't articulate. It asked for what you were too tired to name. And now, the answer is making its way to you. Trust in this unseen dialogue. Just because your conscious mind wasn't aware of the request doesn't mean it wasn't real. The part of you that dreams when you're not sleeping, the part of you that hopes even after heartbreak, the part of you that still believes despite appearances, that part has been speaking all along. And what it asked for is already forming in the invisible. Let go of the need to understand how or why. Let go of the need to control the method or the moment. What is yours is coming, not because you fought for it, not because you chased it, but because the real you asked for it in the only language the universe never ignores, truth. So if you ever wonder why something beautiful has appeared, even though you never prayed for it, smile. Your soul did the asking. And the infinite never forgets a request made from the heart of who you truly are. You're being rewarded for states you've dwelled in silently, not for the loud declarations, not for the visible effort, but for the quiet identities you've worn when no one was watching. Life does not only respond to action, it responds to the vibration you hold. It responds to who you believe yourself to be in your most still, most honest moments. You may not realize it, but you've been creating all along. Every time you imagined a better version of yourself and quietly walked in that feeling, even for a few moments, you planted something. You assumed a state, and that state became a cause. The outer world is only ever an effect. Many believe that only hard work brings the reward, that struggle earns the right to receive. But that is not the full truth. The deeper reality is that your world mirrors the posture of your being, not the desperation of your words, not the intensity of your effort, but the consistency of your inner atmosphere. What you dwell in, you draw in. You have silently chosen peace in situations where chaos was easier. You've quietly assumed success even when the outer world gave you no confirmation. You've walked into rooms and seen yourself as valuable even when no one else acknowledged your worth. These were not just acts of imagination. These were states of being. And the universe, always listening, always responding, recorded them. Now your harvest is arriving. It may seem sudden, but it is not. It may feel unexpected, but it has been long in the making. You simply forgot how many times you chose to dwell in belief rather than fear, in gratitude rather than lack. Those moments added up. Those quiet choices shifted your identity, and it is identity that governs manifestation. Many people manifest. You are not being rewarded because you begged. You are being rewarded because you embodied. You did not need the world's permission to become who you chose to be. You did not wait for circumstances to approve of your vision. You lived from within, and the world has no choice but to reflect that. The most powerful transformation does not come from force, but from assumption. You assumed yourself to be loved. You assumed yourself to be whole. You assumed yourself to be abundant, even when your pockets were empty. And now, life is echoing back what you whispered to yourself so many times in solitude. Understand this: your harvest is not a fluke. It is not an accident. It is a direct return of who you dared to be in the dark. When others watch circumstances, you watch consciousness. When others reacted, you revised. When others spoke of lack, you quietly entertained the atmosphere of abundance. This is not luck. This is law. And the beauty is, you didn't need to perform. You didn't need to convince anyone. You simply remained loyal to the unseen reality you carried inside. The reward is not for noise. It is for alignment. It is for the quiet persistence of being, not the public striving for approval. So when your blessing arrives, and it will, receive it with certainty. Receive it not with surprise, but with quiet knowing. This is what happens when you live in a state long enough for the world to catch up. This is what happens when you let your inner world lead. You are not being rewarded because the world finally saw you. You are being rewarded because you finally saw yourself and stayed there. Delay is not denial, it's design. When what you want doesn't arrive on your timeline, it's easy to feel forgotten. But life is not withholding your blessing out of cruelty or indifference. It's preparing the stage for your arrival. Just because you can't see the movement doesn't mean it isn't happening. Often the most significant work is done behind the curtain, in the invisible, where the foundation is being laid. You may have cried out, begged, visualized, and wondered why nothing changed. You may have questioned your worth, questioned the process, or even questioned the divine. But the truth is, the blessing was never denied to you. It was simply waiting for alignment. What does alignment mean? It means becoming the version of yourself that can hold, honor, and sustain what you're asking for. Not the desperate version, not the fearful version, but the stable, clear, prepared version. Life doesn't give you what you want, it reflects who you are. Until your inner world matches the frequency of the blessing, it cannot fully land. This is not punishment, it's protection. What would it serve you to receive something you're not yet ready for? A relationship, a position, a financial windfall? Any of these in the wrong state of being can slip right through your fingers. But in alignment, they become permanent, not just passing moments of luck. Consider how many blessings you prayed for in the past, and looking back, you now see why they couldn't arrive then. The timing wasn't wrong, it was wise. Certain people were still in your life who would have sabotaged it. Certain habits still controlled you that would have squandered it. Certain beliefs still lived in you that would have rejected it. But now you are different. You have shifted, perhaps without even realizing it. You've outgrown old limitations. You've faced inner shadows. You've started to respond to life differently. And that means the stage is changing, the design is completing, the delivery is near. Do not confuse waiting with stagnation. Waiting is active when you are becoming. Delay is filled with divine intention when you are aligning. And so much has already happened that you haven't seen. Connections forming, doors unlocking, opportunities moving in your direction silently. Not because you forced them, but because your state began to match what you once only imagined. You don't need to chase, you need to tune in. You don't need to beg, you need to become. This is how blessings arrive, not by demand but by resonance. And when it comes, it will come suddenly, though the preparation was long. Like a fruit that seems to ripen overnight, though the tree has been growing silently for months, your blessing will appear fully formed. And it will fit perfectly, not too early, not too late. So stop measuring the delay as a failure. Begin to see it as a sign that something greater is taking shape. The delay is not a punishment, it is alignment in progress. The design is intricate and every detail has been arranged for your highest good. Not just for what you want, but for what will elevate you. Trust the wisdom of life's timing. Let go of forcing and lean into faith. What's meant for you is not in jeopardy. It is in motion. And when it arrives, it will be clear that the delay wasn't the end. It was the architecture of something sacred, something lasting. Delay is not denial. It is divine intelligence moving pieces into place. And soon you'll step onto a stage that has been built just for you. Invisible movements precede visible miracles. This is the nature of creation. What becomes physical was once invisible. Before you ever touch the manifestation, it has already taken form in the unseen. Just because you can't detect progress with your senses doesn't mean nothing is happening. The most powerful shifts occur in silence. You may feel forgotten. You may think nothing is changing. You may look around and wonder if you're stuck. But what you don't see is more significant than what you do. Life is not idle. It is always moving, just not always on your schedule or in your preferred direction. But it is moving with precision, and it is moving in response to who you are becoming. The universe arranges itself around your assumptions. What you persist in imagining, what you emotionally commit to, begins to take shape the moment you dwell in that state. You don't need to ask out loud. You don't even need to fully understand what you want. Your inner world speaks in frequencies, and life listens to that language more clearly than it listens to words. And so even now there are connections forming. People you've never met are being nudged toward your orbit. Doors you don't even know exist are beginning to unlock. Circumstances are being rearranged in the background of your life, not because you demanded it, but because your energy is calling it forth. You are not waiting on the miracle. The miracle is waiting on your full alignment with it. The trap is thinking that visible progress is the only kind of progress. But the seed doesn't sprout the moment it's planted. It pushes against darkness. It breaks apart from the inside out. Roots form first, beneath the surface, where no one claps, where no one sees, where no one praises. But those roots are the miracle in motion. Your life is the same. When things feel quiet, when answers don't come, when nothing appears to be changing, something deeper is. The unseen groundwork is being laid. The people, timing, and opportunities necessary to carry your desire to full expression are being divinely woven together. That is not delay, that is divine order. You must stop assuming that silence means absence. Some of the greatest answers come wrapped in stillness. Some of the biggest blessings grow in invisible places until they are too big to be hidden any longer. The fact that you can't see it is not a sign to give up. It's a sign to trust harder. You don't need to chase what is already being sent. You don't need to obsess over how or when. What is for you is already in movement. The invisible threads are being pulled together by something greater than logic, by a power that knows exactly what you need, even when you don't know how to ask for it. To stay in your state, remain faithful to your vision. Assume that the miracle is on the way, not because of outer proof, but because of inner conviction. You are not ignored. You are being prepared. And life is aligning with your energy whether you see it or not. And when it finally breaks through the surface, when it moves from unseen to seen, you will understand that none of it was random. None of it was luck. It was always coming. The only delay was your readiness to receive it. And now you are ready. Remember, the invisible comes first. The world you touch is simply the echo of what you've believed, embodied, and assumed to be true. So walk forward, not with worry, but with quiet confidence, because something is happening, even now. Grace doesn't require permission, only readiness. It is not something you earn through pleading or proving yourself. It is not handed out as a reward for good behavior or hard labor. Grace flows when you are aligned, when the inside of you becomes capable of holding what was always yours to receive. You are not receiving this blessing because you bargained for it. You are receiving it because you became someone who can carry it with strength and humility. There is a version of you who once would have rejected this blessing, unintentionally, unconsciously, not because you didn't want it, but because you didn't yet believe you were worthy of it. You might have sabotaged it, overlooked it, or mistrusted it. That version of you was still attached to an old identity, still rehearsing the language of lack and fear. But something in you has shifted, not loudly, not in ways that others may have noticed, but deeply, subtly. You have started to walk with a different posture. You've begun to speak more gently to yourself, to expect more from life, not from arrogance, but from quiet knowing. You stopped begging for crumbs and started preparing for the feast. That is readiness, and that is what grace responds to. Grace is not transactional. It doesn't ask, have you done enough? It only asks, are you open enough? Are you expanded enough to carry this gift without collapsing under its weight? Because every blessing carries a responsibility. Every answered prayer reshapes your life. And the old version of you couldn't carry it, not because you were unworthy, but because you were unprepared. Now you are becoming. Grace has noticed. The shift didn't happen overnight. It happened in the way you chose patience when you were tired of waiting, in the way you released control even when fear begged you to grip tighter, in the way you stopped trying to prove your worth and began to live it. Those quiet shifts created space, and grace, ever watching, filled that space without hesitation. You didn't force this. You didn't manipulate it. You didn't earn it through suffering. It arrived because your soul finally opened wide enough to let it land. It arrived because you stopped running and started receiving. You let go of timelines. You stopped trying to fix everything. And in that surrender, a door opened. You must understand, grace is not bound by logic. It is not measured by how many steps you've taken or how long you've waited. It simply knows when you're ready. It moves without delay when you've let go of resistance. And often it shows up suddenly, catching you off guard. Not because it's random, but because its delivery never depended on your effort. It depended on your readiness. And now you are ready. You may not feel perfect. You may still have doubts. But perfection was never the requirement. Presence was. A willing heart, an open mind, a soul willing to stretch beyond old stories. That is all grace ever asks for. And now that it sees you become the one who can hold this blessing, it does not hesitate. So when it arrives, this thing you didn't force, this beauty you didn't chase, accept it with confidence. Not pride, not guilt, but quiet acknowledgement that you have finally aligned with it. Let it unfold without question. Let it be easy. Let it be natural. Because that's how grace moves. Effortlessly, generously, without needing your justification. You don't need permission to be blessed. You only need the courage to allow it. And now that you've softened enough to receive what once overwhelmed you, it's yours. Grace does not knock. It walks in when the door is open. And now, it is. You may not have spoken the words, but your soul has been in conversation with the divine all along. The blessings approaching your life are not random. They are responses to states you've silently lived in, truths you've embraced, and versions of yourself you've dared to become. Nothing was denied, only delayed until you were truly ready to hold it. While the world saw stillness, the unseen was moving. You are not being rewarded for asking loudly, but for aligning quietly. Grace does not wait for permission. It flows to those who are finally prepared to receive it. And now, it's your time. What's meant for you is already finding its way to you. Say to thanks, thank you for listening. May you continue to trust the timing of your life, stand firm in your quiet alignment, and receive all that was already yours. Without force, without fear, and without apology.